Hey everybody, my name is Paul Vojchehoske. I am the director of Randall School of Real Estate, and we're continuing our course in developing professional conduct and ethical practices, the 6-hour course that you have to take. This is video number 4. Real quick, do me a favor, give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that little red subscribe button and click on that notification bell. We are on page 25, okay? 25. Now, in your booklet, the booklet's going to we're going to talk about 3 different what we call models of ethical analysis, or what I like to call decision-making matrices. Even our code of ethics, the Realtor Code of Ethics, has a really great matrix for decision-making that I use, right? And I want to go through these 3, and they're on page 25, because I think it's important to me as a managing broker. I like to use a matrix to make decisions, because every day we get questions from our agents, and how do we handle this situation? So it's good to know the different methods and then decide on one. And then what I would tell you is, as you grow in this industry, if you end up opening up your own brokerage firm or whatever, then you make sure that all of your managers and stuff, and even your agents, use the same model, right? That way there, it keeps it objective and not subjective. So let's look at the first one here. We're on page 25. And we're going to talk about the rationale model of ethical analysis and decision-making. This is also known as Doing Ethics in Business. It's from a book, I think, back in the early 1980s. I read it at some point. I can't remember the name. Oh, the name's right there. Doing Ethics in Business. That's the name of the book. And they outline 8 different points as far as making a decision on something, right? The first one is state the ethical dilemma in plain language. Number 2 is identify relevant facts. The third step is identify relevant values and principles. Number 4, list alternative courses of actions. Number 5, rank your value objectives in preferential order. Rank predictable consequences and make your decision. That's a long form. So looking at your manual on page 25, let me give you a scenario. Do you disclose whether or not there was a death in the house? Should you disclose it? Right? Now, I don't use any one of these 3. I actually use the one that comes from the arbitration manual that's talked about, or that's in the Code of Ethics for the Realtors. It's a triangle. It has, what does the law say? And if the law addresses it, that's your decision. If the law doesn't address it, then we go, what does the Code of Ethics say? If the Code of Ethics doesn't say it, then we go to community standards, which is, in my definition, can you defend your decision in front of a jury with the reasonable expectation that you're going to win? Now, anybody can say, yeah, I can defend my decision in front of the jury, but can you win? Do you have a reasonable expectation you can win, right? So I want to run through this. Do you have to disclose a death in the house? Legally, the answer is maybe, right? So what does the law say? The law says that if, in the state of Nebraska, if the death resulted in, and this is where we have to know, what does it say here under our rational model here? Identify relevant values. That also includes facts. Or number 2, identify relevant facts, ranking them in significance, order of significance. And then in number 4, list alternative courses of action. What are you going to do? And then finally, make your decision. Right, so let's go back to our deal here. So do you have to disclose whether or not somebody dies in the home? Well, the law says yes and no. The law says that if the death resulted in any biological particulates left behind, then yeah, you have to have a biohazard certified company come and clean it up. So let's say it was a suicide and the person shot themselves and it was full of blood. Well, under state law, you have to go in and hazmat has to clean it up, and then there has to be documentation. So yeah, it's disclosure. It is a disclosurable item. But let's say it was in-home hospice. The person died of a natural cause, but it was hospice. The answer is no, you don't have to legally. All right, so if you don't have to legally, what does our code of ethics say? Again, number 4, a comparison, list alternative courses of action. We're going to go down to, what does the code of ethics say? Well, the code of ethics says that under Article 2 of the Realtor Code of Ethics, you disclose when you're required to by law. So the code of ethics in this specific case doesn't really address it. Then we go to number 7. Well, let's go to number 6. It says rank predictable consequences in terms of harmful or beneficial effects. That's important because it impacts our decision, which is number 7. We go to that third round, that third corner of the triangle, which is community standard. The decision not to disclose. So let's say our person died of natural causes. So legally, there is no requirement to disclose. Then we go to, what does the ethics say? Ethics doesn't address it. Now we go to community standards. This is where we go, well, what's the outcome if the seller doesn't disclose? Well, one outcome is this. As soon as the buyers move in, the buyers had no knowledge of this person dying of natural causes because it was in-home hospice care. The neighbors are more than likely, once they get to know the new owners, are going to start blabbing, right? Hey, did you know so-and-so died in there? And usually it's not all the facts. It's like the tale, like I think a Journey song said, there's a phrase that says the tale grows taller on down the line. That means, Emma died of natural causes. The neighbor's going to say, yeah, Jeffrey Dahmer lived there and he was cutting people up and barbecuing people's legs and stuff. I mean, you get what I'm saying here. And I'm doing this to illustrate a point. The neighbors will always let the new owner know what happened, and then they will always embellish the facts. So then the new owner gets all freaked out. Then they start suing people, right? So going back to number 6, predictable consequences in terms of harmful or beneficial effect. We have harmful or beneficial. Which do we want? So it is our job as a real estate professional based on that model to say, listen, legally, you don't have to disclose. Ethically, according to my code of ethics, you don't have to disclose. But let's think about community standard. If you don't disclose and the buyer finds out, to some buyers and particular cultures, like the Native American community, death in a home is a big deal. Some of the cultures in the Far East, very important. So when they find out, and they will, are you ready to defend a lawsuit? Now, you're probably going to win because the law says there's no requirement. But do you want to spend tens of thousands of dollars and go through 3 years of a lawsuit to defend it when we simply disclose it in the disclosure form, right? Now, the buyer or the seller may say, nope, I'm not disclosing it. Okay, then you as the real estate agent, you have a decision to make. Will you take the listing if they don't disclose? And you know what? That is a business decision. The point is we're going through the process of this analysis. What's the right thing to do? In this case, there really is no right thing to do when somebody has died in Nebraska of natural causes because there's no requirement legally to disclose. What does ethics say? Our ethics says nothing. But what's the moral? What's the community standard say? And that's what you have to make a decision on, and we use this model to do it. And in terms of harmful or beneficial, in number 6 under the rationale model, you might encourage your seller to disclose to prevent a lawsuit, right? And prevent you from getting and your broker from getting drug into a lawsuit. So, and then number 8, it says adopt a proactive attitude and purpose a policy or institutional arrangement for preventing the ethical dilemma from reoccurring. I'll give you an example of what that means using our example that we used here. The broker would have a policy that determines what the agent action should be in those scenarios. So then it's not left to the agent, it's left to the broker who makes the ultimate decision. So that's an example of what I'm talking about and how these models are utilized, right? So let's go to the second model, which is the Rotarian model. And the Rotarian model has a 4-way test to your final decision. That's really what it is, right? Number 1, is it the truth? Is whatever the dilemma is true, right? And you need to highlight that. That's important to highlight. You're going to need to know that. Page 25, Rotarian model, the truth, highlight that. So going back to our scenario we used previously, do you disclose whether someone died in the house? Well, did they? Did somebody die? Is it the truth? Or is it a rhetorical question? Number 2, is it fair to all concerned? By disclosing it, would that be fair to anybody who may want to buy the house or anybody who may walk through or be interested? Number 3, will it build goodwill and better friendship? That's a great question. Because here's the thing, think of this. Let's say that the seller does disclose this to the buyer. The buyer's let's say the buyer doesn't have any beef with it whatsoever. Great. Thank you for telling me. I appreciate that. Thank you for telling and disclosing that to me when you didn't have to. I appreciate that. So let's say a month after closing, the hot water heater stops working. Could that prevent the buyer from coming after the seller saying, hey, you knew that this water heater was bad? See what I mean? They already have some credibility with you. They already trust that, hey, you disclosed the fact that somebody died when you didn't have to. Thank you. So when they start talking about the hot water heater, they're approaching each other in a more respectable manner. Now, if the buyer found out that the seller lied about that person dying in there, and then this happens with the hot water heater, red flag goes up immediately. They get defensive and go, you know what? That seller knew exactly what they were doing. That seller was trying to screw us. You see what I mean? So it does build goodwill and better friendship. Number 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Yeah, disclosure is always beneficial. You may not have to legally or ethically, but yeah, disclosure is always beneficial when appropriate. So that's the Rotarian model. And don't forget, you need to know bullet point number 1. Is it in fact true? That's where it all starts. The next one is the new garden principle. Need. Is there immediate help that's required? Is there a need for someone to be helped immediately? Number 2, proximity. Are you close enough to the situation to do something about it? Right? Number 3, capability. Do you have the ability and motivation to help? And number 4, is there anyone else that can help? Now, under the new garden principle of ethical decision making, you need to know number 1. So highlight number 1, need. Is there an immediate need for help? All right. All right. So that is the 3 different models that one can use in helping them with their decision-making processes. And that really is what it is. So you know what? We're done. Hold on before you go. We're done with this particular video. I'm going to move on. But page 26 and 27 has to do with fair housing. There is an exam in there. This course really doesn't talk about fair housing in the writing or in the book. It's typically left to the instructor. However, I know many of you at least should have already taken your 2 pre-licensing courses. And so you have principles and practice and your license law book to be able to answer this. And this has to be turned in. The quiz on 26 and 27 has to be turned in with your exam, or at least turned in before we can give you your certificate. So don't forget to do that. And feel free to use the internet or anything else you need to help answer these questions. Page 28, 29, and page 30 deals with different scenarios that real estate professionals been in. And then if we were in class, what we would do is use the different models, the ethical dilemma models, to answer each one. It's kind of a cool exercise. We don't have the ability to do that, but I do want you to read through there and at least see what different people have been faced with, and then use the model. Go use the model and decide, hey, how would you handle this? And again, most of the time there's not a right or wrong answer. Okay, so we're going to go on to the next video.